Hello, Steeler Nation, and welcome to your Steeler Nation podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, G.Stryker. Training camp is here. So what are the biggest camp battles to look out for this year? I mean, we all know quarterback's the big thing here with, is it going to be Trubisky or is it going to be Rudolph pretty much going at it for the number one role? I think Pickett's kind of learning this year. But one aspect about the quarterbacks that I want to mention is Olodikin going to get enough snaps to show us that we can move Mason Rudolph possibly for a draft pick? That's the aspect of the quarterback matchups that we really don't discuss a whole lot here on the show. But that's something, because we're definitely not going to trade Pickett. He's a first-round draft pick, top quarterback taken in the draft this year. No chance. I'm probably not moving on from Trubisky as well, just because the Steelers went out to acquire him this year. But we know he's a good commodity. We could also get draft picks for him if we chose to trade him this year as well. I just think Rudolph is probably the best chance at getting a trade and a draft pick for a player. We'll have to see how that matchup goes on. And it looks like in these first couple days, Rudolph is doing a little bit better than Trubisky. Still early in camp. Still too early to say anything what's going on with anybody. Olodikin hasn't even taken a snap yet in team drills. So we got a lot more camp to go through, a lot more opportunities for these guys moving forward. Next big rotation we're seeing and big camp battle is at left guard. We have Dotson, who was the starter last year at left guard, versus Green, who was the starter at center last year. Day one of camp, Dotson was the left guard. Day two of camp, Green was the left guard with the ones. So we'll have to see if Friday, if it's going to be Dotson again and they're doing a rotation to see who's doing better, or if they stick with Green. That's just a really interesting battle, and it appears to be a completely open competition. Now, slot receiver is another position that I thought was going to be kind of locked down by one of the rookies or gunner. I thought Austin or Pickens were going to be there, but it looks like so far in camp, the Steelers have moved Claypool to the slot from his normal Z spot. I think if we're running two wide receiver sets, it's still going to be Deontay Johnson and Claypool, but with Deontay Johnson on a hold in right now, which we'll talk about later in the show, we now have Cody White coming in and playing the X. Claypool sliding inside from the Z to play slot, and rookie George Pickens on the outside playing in Claypool's spot and putting up some pretty interesting tape already this early in training camp, making you excited for a highly drafted wide receiver. Looks like possibly another hit for the Pittsburgh Steelers receiver drafting. Second and third running back, also really interesting to me this year. Obviously, all-world, Pro Bowl, rookie last year, never has fumbled a snap yet. Najee Harris is number one. So who's going to be 2 and 3 behind him? We've got McFarland and we've got Snell, who we know. We have McNichols that we just signed right before camp. And we have Mateo Durant as well as an undrafted rookie free agent. Right now, we appear to have 4 dogs and 2 bones. So this is probably going to be the fiercest competition on offense to see who finally makes this roster. McFarland, Snell, McNichols, and Durant, because probably only 2 of them are going to make it this year. Punt return, kick returner, this is going to be a lot of play because our punt returner, kick returner, Ray McLeod, is gone from last year. We brought in Gunner to fit that role. He was an all-pro as well at that return position for punting. Is he going to make it? But that was 2 years ago. Now we also have Sutton in the mix. We've got Austin, we got Miller, we got Snead, we got Sims. Personally, I think it's going to come down to Gunner and Austin, the young buck and the veteran, to see who's going to win the return duties on this team. And that may determine on whether or not Gunner even makes this roster. If he can get supplanted by one of these younger returners, he might be on the outside looking in when it comes to roster cut down the last week of preseason. Nose tackle depth. Hopefully Tyson Alualu will come back here soon, but we got Adams, we got Doug Costin, who the Steelers just picked up before camp as well. These 2 guys are looking to be in a battle on who's going to be backing up Alualu because the Steelers usually only keep 2 nose tackles on the roster. Now, we also have left defensive end, and is that going to be up in the air? We have got Chris Wormley as the starter last year. Steelers brought in Okojobi to possibly fill that role as well and to compete there. Okojobi is not completely returned from that ankle injury yet. He's doing individual workouts for practice, but he's not doing the team drills yet. Keep a lookout for that. I expect him to come back here pretty soon, especially if his foot is responding favorably to practices, which it appears to be. He's not being set back thus far. We'll have to see moving forward if he starts getting some prime snaps and where he's going to slot in. Obviously, on the pre-snap drills, he was showing up in the ones. So it'll be interesting to see where he finally lays out when he comes back in full bore, ready to go. Third outside linebacker is also a position I'm super excited about. We've got Avery that they picked up from the Eagles, who was a starter last year at their outside linebacker. Also have Tuska, who knows the system and is playing there on the second team along with Avery. Going to be interesting to see who gets that top rotational spot. Is it going to be Avery, the vet? Is it going to be Tuska, who knows the system but is still young? It's still out there, but this is going to be a fierce competition as well through training camp. This is my number one most surprised battle, which I didn't even know was a battle until I started reviewing the camp reports from day 1 and day 2. We've got Devin Bush rotating on the ones with Robert Spillane. Looks like Myles Jack is entrenched at left inside linebacker, but there appears to be a rotating competition between Spillane and Bush. We know both of those players can make splash plays. Both of them made interceptions on day 2. So this is a fierce competition. This is one that Bush has to show his athleticism and be like, you're not taking my spot this year. I know where I'm supposed to be. I'm going to get there faster than anybody because this is his last chance. Steelers did not pick up his 5th-year option. If they're looking to sign him, they will do it before free agency to a contract, or they will look to tag him. Both are options, but this is actually a competition right now, first week of preseason, Spillane or Bush as starting inside linebacker. Craziness. Absolute craziness. Also, who's going to be our slot corner? We know Norwood and Mollett played there last year. We're seeing, Sutton is capable there as well. Also seeing Carl Joseph get a lot of prime snaps there, especially with Killebrew being injured, meaning we've got a lot more snaps there. In the secondary for KZ's actually starting over on free safety side with Fitzpatrick being out right now with his wrist injury, which we'll talk to in a second. But I think that strong safety may be up for grabs as well. Once Fitzpatrick comes back, will they start to rotate Edmonds and KZ at that strong safety position to see if one of them may be more complementary to Fitzpatrick's skills? That would be a battle I would love to see in training camp. So I'm earmarking that one. And my last training camp battle appears to be who's going to be our starting 2 outside corners. We got 3 that are capable: Sutton, Witherspoon, and Wallace. Seems like the Steelers really like Sutton. They're rotate at right corner. They're rotating Witherspoon and Wallace at left corner, but there was a spot in day 2 where Sutton came off the field. Witherspoon and Wallace were the 2 outside corners. So this is an open competition as well. 3 dogs, 2 bones. I am going to be watching this one with a lot of anticipation. I think Sutton has the inside track, as well as Witherspoon knowing the system, but Wallace is athletic, can make plays, and he's going to probably try to make his best effort to show he can play here on defense. Also having a couple of these undrafted rookie free agents at the cornerback position making plays, and also our older cornerbacks from last season with Justin Lane and them appear to look like they are trying to make plays to stay on this team. There's a lot of competition at corner this year. That is the spot really to look to see who the Steelers are going to pare down to about 5 corners on the outside to see who sticks around. Deontay Johnson, the elephant in the room, obviously kind of doing what TJ Watt did last year with his hold in. Not a holdout. He's showing up to camp. He's doing the individual drills, but when it goes to team drills, he works out himself. That's exactly what TJ Watt did last year. We will have to see if this continues, but he's obviously in the last year of his contract. Steelers usually re-sign players with 1 year left in their contract. This is not different than anything different than what they've already done with TJ Watt, with Minkah Fitzpatrick, who was in the last year with his 5th-year option as well. Deontay Johnson was not a first year, no chance of getting a 5th-year option, but did stick around on the roster. The Steelers still have him as and should honestly be thinking about signing him to long-term. Now, this may just be a smart move by Deontay Johnson, knowing that he would be fined if he did not show up to practice at all. He's trying to force the issue of a new signing, but if he doesn't get signed, I expect him fully to play this year, because if he has another great year, he's going to get paid in spades in free agency this next year. Gets another 100 receptions, the guy's going to get paid big time, no matter where he goes, if the Steelers don't try to find a way to lock him down before free agency hits, or possibly to tag him for 1 year. We'll have to watch and see how that works out, but I'm not going to fault him for holding in. It worked for TJ last year. This is really his last thing that he can do to show. It's not like Hines Ward, who actually did hold out for a bit before Bettis begged him to come back, and he didn't get his new contract until he came back. Steelers will negotiate if you are on the sidelines. That is the way they do business. Deontay Johnson's on the sideline. He's letting them know, I want a new contract. Are they going to give it to him? We don't know, but it's on the table. Absolutely on the table. Talked about Fitzpatrick. He's on the NFL non-football injury report, non-football related injury list, with a wrist injury falling off a bike right before training camp, unfortunately. He should be getting back here soon. Alualu has knee swelling. That concerns me tremendously, stating he's had that issue since OTAs. This is the same knee that he had injured last season. If they can't get that in control, we're going to have to look at arthroscopic knee surgery to try to remove some loose bodies, clear it out in there to hopefully reduce the swelling, because right now it doesn't look like it's going down on its own. And Killebrew hurt his pec, and that may hurt him to make the roster, because you can't make the roster from the tub. And a pec injury can be a big injury that may hold him out for a long time. So tough break right there for Killebrew for making this team. A guy that blocked 2 punts for us last year on special teams. Special teams monster, absolute monster last year. And we know he's got some safety potential and slot potential, and our safeties are stepping up. KZ and Joseph look like they can play. So this is going to be some interesting competition. And if Killebrew can't get back soon, he's going to be on the outside looking in on this roster. Now it is time where we take questions from Steeler Nation. Go to SteelerNation.com. Sign up on the football forum for free. I take my questions from the football forum every week. And this is how you get to ask questions for the podcast. First question coming from Blitz. Are the Steelers done in free agency? Last few years, it seems they do something unexpected in the last few days of training camp or right before the start of the season. Right now, as we sit today, Blitz, already picking up Doug Costin at nose tackle, already picking up Okajobi at outside defensive end, also picking up McNichol at running back. I think they are done. They are done at free agency, still have a ton of room. So if an injury occurs or a crazy cut happens at the end of the year, like they cut somebody like Hayden, Steelers have the money to go out and get that type of player to help improve their roster. But right now, not a lot of holes on the Steelers roster. As long as they stay healthy, I don't see them making any moves currently in free agency unless there's a big injury, unless somebody that they can't deny gets cut, maybe a big offensive tackle, maybe a big nose tackle right here at the end of the year, moving into the regular season. Those are the only chances I see of the Steelers making another big move in free agency. We will have to watch out for that. Mad Insomniac with the last question from Steeler Nation. What grade would you give the O-line compared to last year? Well, this year, Mad, I would have to say I'd have to go with my college grading system, and currently it's an incomplete. Right now, we have no idea how these newer players are going to work out in the system with Cole and Jenkins working on the other side. But last year, we had 3 players with very little NFL starting experience, starting Green at center, starting Moore at left tackle, and then starting Dotson in his first. He did some spot starts his rookie year and did great. First year as a starter, though, was his year 2. So you had 3 new full-time starters on that line. Now we've got 2 starters. They're competing for that left guard spot that already have a year of starting experience under their belt. You got Cole, who's a vet, starting at center. You got Daniels, who's a vet, starting at guard. You got Chooks, who's the biggest vet on the team, starting at right tackle. And second year, Moore coming in at left tackle. I'd have to say it's an improvement from last year. Still don't know how these guys are going to gel and move forward. But right now, I'd have to say it's an improvement, especially with Cole and Daniels being run-oriented guys as well as Dotson. It looks like they have open rotation right now with he and Green, but we'll have to see the way that shakes out as well with the final working there at left guard. And that's all the time we have for the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Go over to the tscshop.com to visit our sponsor. Make sure you follow them at Total Sports ENT on Twitter. They give away stuff every day. Must follow at Total Sports ENT on Twitter. Vidcast going to be probably on Tuesday at 7 o'clock Eastern live. So subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/SteelerNation. Be the first to know when we're going live so you can jump on and ask questions. Read our great Pittsburgh Steeler focused articles at SteelerNation.com. Follow us at Steeler Nation, Instagram and Facebook at SteelerNation.com. Follow the podcast on Twitter at _SN Podcast. And follow your host, Steeler Nation Striker, at SN Striker, Twitter, Instagram, Tickety Talk. Easy to find. Striker always spelled with a Y. Thanks for joining us for the Steeler Nation podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, G.Stryker, rooting along with you as always. Go Steelers!